I ran 100 villager farmed invitations. This is the loot I got. It's around 250 tier 17 maps, which is, higher than a 1 and 2 average in every map. It's 1600 conqueror, elder, shaper maps. It's a lot of unique maps, which I'm not counting, and it is around 500 vines. I filtered everything under free chaos in here. I also did put it into a Google Docs, which I'll get into after explaining the strat, and I'll show an example map at the end of the video too. So Scarabs, before I say this, I want to say this strategy wasn't made by me. I saw a video on it at the start of the league. However, I believe their Scarab setup and Atlas tree is outdated, and they also gave quite a small sample size. This is obviously a very large sample size, 400 maps. So this is what I recommend to run. These two Scarabs, Domination Scarab of Terrors and Influence and Scarab of Conversion, and the Cartography Scarab of Singularity. Why do we run this? Unique maps are worth nothing. We do not want the uniques. However, those uniques can convert into, the synthesized, the conquerors, the elders, the shapers, and even tier 17 maps. And with an average of, I'd say, 8.8 bosses per map, I believe you'd probably be getting two of these unique maps converted to, proper ones that you want. And then we add the cartography scarab of duplication. It feels higher than a 30%. I don't know if I got lucky, but this shit did not feel like 30%. It felt like 50. And the Atlas tree, we're running Rogue Exiles mainly because you don't want to run League Mechanics because it'll slow down your map, and Rogue Exiles will die as you're killing the bosses, around them, so you don't really have to spend extra time on them. It's just a free chance to get more maps to have a chance to convert. I run this node to juice up my Rogue Exiles. I don't run this one over here. I think it takes too much time to, wait for them to, touch the bosses and then the time added to kill the bosses that are touched. It doesn't seem worth it. We are running destructive play. The strat kind of revolves around this. You run invitations, you get destructive play, you get 1 to 3 additional bosses. I believe the average it averages out to like 2.9 bosses. I've never seen one boss summon from this. It was almost always free. I can count on one hand how many times it summoned too. I don't know why it almost always summons free. Maybe it's because the type of invitations you're doing, but it almost always summons free. I took all the map modifier effect. I took the increased chance for map drops. I took all of the map, thingies, nodes down here, all of the ones here, and obviously shrines because more shrines equals more bosses, and also you could just clear the map a lot faster. Okay, before I get into the loot breakdown, I want to explain the maths behind the unique map Scarab and why I personally believe it to be the best Scarab setup to run for this strategy. I averaged around 8.8 bosses on average per map. I believe the reason I put 8.8 is because, you know, sometimes you get 5 bosses from shrines, you get one boss from the main map boss, and then you get 1 to 3 from Maven. I averaged that to around like 2.9 since the free showed up way more often than the two. However, I brought it down to 2.8 for that because sometimes you wouldn't kill a shrine boss. Sometimes you'd accidentally skip it because it zoomed off your screen and you don't see, you forget. So I averaged it to around 8.8 bosses on average per map. The first 6 invitations I ran were without the unique map Scarab, which means only 376 maps were ran with it. So that means if we do 8.8 times 376, we'd get how many unique maps we, should have estimated dropped. 3,308, which means we can figure out how many of those converted based on how many we got. And we got 2,583, which is 725 less than how much we should have gotten, which means the conversion chance is 20 to 25%. I don't know which one it is. I genuinely cannot tell. It's one of them. It has to be. So, how do we figure out if this is better than the double cartography scarab duplication? Well, we minus the 725 that were converted from the grand total of how many, tier 17 Shaper Guardian Elders we got, which was 1,906. That leaves us with 1,181. We then minus 30% from that total, which is 827, and then we add 60%, which is 1323. So if we'd replaced the unique map Scarab with another duplication Scarab, we would have lost, 580 maps essentially. Okay, look, first of all, investment was 169 divines. It's 400 maps, so the investment is going to be high. The loot was 259 tier 17 maps, higher than a 1 in every 2 average. I did not expect this many, but I got that many. I will say the tier 17 maps that drop are random. You know, when you run Dunes, you're always going to get the exact same tier 17 map dropping. But for this, you know, you'd run a Pit of the Chimera and it would drop a Ziggurat and then a Sanctuary in the same map. I'm assuming it's because it's not on the Atlas. But 167 divine from that, fragments, you know, the 100 we get from each for running the maps, and then plus 20 essentially for each one. We got 50 Maven's Writs. I ran the invitations quantity higher than 65% and then corrupted. I should have went a bit higher on the quant, but that's how I ran it. The strat is less about the invitations and more about the actual, you know, in-map farming. So I wasn't too worried about rolling the invitations, but exactly 50 Maven's Rest, that adds up to 80 divines. Gems, we got 2 awakened elemental damage with attacks, which is 5 divs each. We got an enlighten. We got 2 awakened void banips, which is 2 divs each, and we got 9 other awakened gems. How many is that? 13 awakened gems in total. 3 of them dropped from map bosses, 10 of them dropped from invitations. I didn't take in, I didn't remember, you know, which dropped from where, but 3 did drop from map bosses. Never the bosses at the shrines. It was always the bosses at the very end of the map. Okay, all of the boss maps are here. You can see 1,647 of them sorted by, you know, most expensive to least expensive. Uh, you over sustain on literally everything. I dropped 6 Maze of the Minotaurs from a Maze of the Minotaur boss once. It was insane. You know, I somehow ran 100 of each maps and ended up making, how much is this? Like almost 200 extra on top of what I earned back. Then the Conqueror maps, you almost got 100 of each. You practically did if you just trade these for these ones. Again, it's the same drop rate for the Elder and Shapers, so this one is just, it's it's an absurd amount to the point where I'm actually surprised the prices haven't completely crashed to like 2 chaos each yet. But who knows, maybe they will when I post this video if it gets a lot of attention. Anyway, currency, 9 raw divines, a lot of these came from the rogue exiles. I didn't really pick up the loot drop from the rogue exiles, you know, like stack decks, fossils, essences, as you couldn't be asked. 15 orb of conflicts, you know, 15% drop rate for me. Uh, and one Baldur's puzzle box, I will also say, when I first started doing this strategy, I thought it was going to be really good when combined with devotion modifiers from this league. You know, when combined by, you know, packs or accompanied by a map boss. I thought it was going to be great, but this league mechanic just kind of nerfed this strategy. That map boss thing does not work. You know, those bosses do not gain the extra modifiers that the bosses you have gain, and the other devotion mods, you know, harbingers, just make it so you can't proc your wildwood ascendancy thingy majiggy, the wisp on bosses unless you spend an extra 2 minutes on those maps, you know, clearing out the harbingers. So it can be a little bit annoying running this strategy in this current league, but in future leagues, I genuinely believe this will be the best, you know, first week of the league strategy in the game, probably. Then the unique maps, I am only counting the synthesized uniques and vaults of Edziri because those are the ones that I'm confident I could sell really easily. I did count all of them though. Let me just see how many I got. Oh, it says at the bottom right. 2,900 unique maps, not including the memories, it's around 2,580. That adds up to 34 divines, not including, you know, the bad maps. So how much money did we make? It was around 12 minutes per invitation, around 20 hours to run. It was 47.2 thousand chaos made, which is almost 500 divines. It's probably higher than 500 divines when including, you know, bulk prices, but minus the investment, it's around 31,000 profit made in chaos, or 333 divines, oh, which is 24.6 divines an hour without the investment minus, and 16.6 divines profit an hour. I will say a lot of good uniques dropped. If you were to do this in the first week of the league, this would probably be the best way to make money. In the game at the start of the league, it's probably going to be what I do next league, assuming, it doesn't get changed, quote unquote changed, nerfed. Anyway, I'll show an example map right now. The Atlas tree and this Google Docs will be in the description.
One of my captors felt no emotion. He did not hesitate to inflict pain. Now, all he feels is intense, unstoppable agony.
They are coming.
Life is so tense.
Need to a crucible that strains the sanity of the mind.